We're back on the Exit 52 podcast. It is Sunday night, August 18th, 7:45 p.m. My name is Jake Luke. I'm powering through some issues here, some internet connectivity issues, some severe T-storms up here in the Baltimore County area, but joined, as always, by the comforting presence of my guy, RDT. How we doing tonight on this fine Sunday night?
We're good. We're good. Again, we talked about the thunderstorms. We had softball canceled an hour after we got there, and we hung around for an hour waiting for the lightning detector to stop going off, and it never did. So that is why we're here now doing this nice little post game. So everything's good though.
Yeah, definitely. Everything seems to be good. So we'll power through it. We'll have some fun, and we'll talk some Orioles baseball after an eventful 4-game series there with the Boston Red Sox, the Bo Sox. Kind of charging up the AL East standings here quietly the last couple months. They've played a little bit, I don't know their exact record, but it feels like they've been playing consistently better than the Orioles than the Yankees in recent weeks here. And they've, like I said, made a little charge. We'll see how serious of a playoff or AL East contender they are. They certainly looked apart at times throughout this series, but the Orioles had the little W sandwich there where they get the win on the first game and then lose 2 in a row. And then they came back, and then here we are. It's a winning recap show, which is something that we always like to point out. First word that comes to mind for this 4-game series for you.
You talked about the kind of sandwich. I'll go with the pitching performances on the winning sides of the bread part of the sandwich. Eflin, the guy just continues to impress every single time he's out there. He was awesome on Thursday night. Again, that seems like it was forever ago. But again, I mean, he just comes out and he shoves. I have his numbers right here. 6 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 8 Ks, no walks, and the 1 run was a home run. You know, I know people were mad that Hyde pulled him, I think at, what was he at, like 87 pitches or something like that? Yeah, 87 pitches. Being like, oh, he could have gone longer. He could have gone. And I thought Hyde after the game had like good quotes being like, listen, our guy, like a lot of these guys are tired. We're not going to push them. You know, I was perfectly fine with him taking him out there. It didn't matter to me. But yeah, I mean, he's been incredible to watch. So just a nice breath of fresh air in the rotation. It almost seems like you kind of just have that confidence in him. Like you had with Burnes earlier on in the season. Like, you know what you're going to get out of Zack Eflin. He has, I mean, nothing even close to a stinker, you know, of any sorts in the 4 starts he's been here. So he was awesome. And then Suarez today, this tweet's gone around in the stat. Suarez leads all of baseball in starts, in scoreless starts. It doesn't matter if it's 4 innings, 5 innings, 6 innings, whatever. I mean, he leads baseball. He's 8. I think it was 8 of his 17 starts are scoreless. That's incredible. Today he was awesome. And somebody brought up a good point too. Not that this matters to anyone, but they were like, he has to be the AL comeback player of the year. I would assume so. You know, 7 years in between major league pitches, and now he's doing this. So he was awesome today. And even in the loss last night, your boy Little Cade Povich. I mean, a lot of people have kind of written him off, me included. I've kind of like, this guy kind of
for this year at least, right?
Yeah. Just this year, yes. Again, I mean, I'm excited to see what he can do in the future, but you know, I haven't been really blown away. I don't think anyone has. But last night, I mean, he was a different guy last night. He was dotting pitches. He didn't walk. This is like the perfect thing. Like, you see what happens when you don't walk people. When your pitching is consistent and you throw strikes and you don't walk people, you keep your team in the game. And you know, he left. I think it was 1-1 when he left. Obviously, the bullpen kind of blew it from there. But I think the story of the series was pitching. And obviously, I got to see the Corbin Burnes, the worst start of his career, I think it was.
Shout out to our guy Ebo. He might be listening to this.
I didn't even know he tweeted that. And I was texting him, and he was like, "Yeah, I jinxed the hell out of that one."
Yeah, tweeted something to the effect of, "Imagine if Corbin Burnes goes out and throws for like a no-hitter or something on his bobblehead night." Which, you know, Corbin's been obviously very excellent this season. He's certainly, you know, there's been some discourse around him where it's like, oh, this guy can't go more than 6 innings. You know, he gives up his obligatory kind of home run in the first there. As my video is cut out, I think maybe a connection issue there with the camera. So in fact, what I think I'll do is switch over to this one. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, a little bit more of an intimate setting here actually with the camera. But yeah, shout out to Ebo there for that tweet on the Corbin Burnes bobblehead night. That got a real chuckle out of me after he went out there and kind of filled his pants a little bit in that game, which I watched I think I listened to the start and then watched Corbin kind of slowly unravel there from a steakhouse with my golf group, and I were, all excited to go out and play Queenstown Harbor the next day. And just kind of slowly, we were enjoying our dinner and everything, but just watching him kind of slowly just sort of, start to putter and billow and twist in the wind in the way that we have not seen Corbin Burnes yet this season. That was discouraging, but like, you're going to have starts like that as a pitcher. And you make the point about Eflin, you make the point about Povich, who I think, unfortunately, was immediately sent back down to AAA. It seems like Trevor Rogers is very much in the plans as kind of that bona fide locked-in starter at the back end of the rotation. I don't know if I totally agree with that move. I'm not really sure what the calculus is on Rogers as far as, if you want to send him down or whatever the options might be there. But still continuing to tinker with the rotation in spite of that strong start from him. And then obviously Bert Suarez goes out there and shoves today. So, when you're having a 4-game series and 3 of the pitching performances are pretty great, you're going to be able to count on Corbin Burnes bouncing back. And like you said, Zach Eflin has just been kind of steady Eddie out there. He's been a guy that you can rely on just about every time he gets the ball. So yeah, that was another encouraging thing to see. And a lot of playoff discourse starting up too. We had a question in here from Sterling Rapicelli, thoughts on giving Eflin game 2 in a playoff series, even if Grayson is healthy. I think that's a worthy conversation to kind of start, especially given that we don't know how Grayson's going to look when he comes back. I mean, it's just kind of a mild sprain to his teres or however you pronounce that. I'm not sure what the timeline is exactly as far as getting back. I think they said sometime in September, late September, keeping it kind of nebulous on purpose. I think that makes sense. But as of right now, I think I would probably say, yes, give it to Eflin. I think he has playoff experience, correct? He's been good in big spots, and he's been exactly the guy the Orioles needed him to be for all the hand-wringing at the deadline there. I think more from the national side. I think Orioles fans knew that Tarek Skubal wasn't going to be in the picture, but some of these podcasts I'm listening to, it's like, come on, Baltimore, what are you doing? Why are you not going to get Tarek Skubal? And it's just like we talked about at the time. Like, it takes 2 to tango. It would have taken the Tigers being willing to give him up. And with the way that Holiday has played, I'm glad they didn't ship him off. We'll see what happens with Mayo and some of the other guys and Basayo, what the plans are going to be with him, with the, potential position changes for different guys and stuff. But overall, I guess that's just kind of a long-winded way of saying that, yeah, encouraged by the pitching, especially given the fact that I wholeheartedly count on Corbin Burnes not making a regular habit of doing what he did in his start.
Mm-hmm. And again, I mean, people may not know this. I think Boston's offense, I think they're top 5 in runs in baseball. Their offense is good. Like we saw it Friday night. Being at that game, that was like being at a softball game. The Orioles had 17 hits. The Red Sox had 14. And Banks had a perfect tweet where he said the Orioles and Red Sox play one of these drunk games like once or twice a year where it's like 25 combined runs and they're, just a crazy game. And that's what Friday night was. And it goes to show sometimes the top 3, top 2 pitcher in baseball has these nights. And you could tell early on that Burnes didn't have it. But then again, you can turn around and look at Cade Povich, who no one really had faith in, coming out and shoving like that. And same thing with Bert. You got to, Boston, those guys get paid too. They hit the hell out of the ball and they're not as bad as we thought they would be. Again, we're like 120 games into the season. And yeah, it's like they're a very
they've come on stronger, if anything. Those early series in the season against them, I was not nearly as impressed.
No.
I know Jaron Duran's been in the news for some pretty, shady shit recently, obviously.
What did he do?
There
was a guy in a Duran jersey in front of us who every time he did something on Friday night would stand up and like point at his back. And this kid was like, he made me look big. Like, this kid was like 17 years old, like bleach blonde hair down to his shoulders. And it was like, all right, brother, like just, yeah, like, just,
the martyrdom around guys when that kind of things happen, just kind of a, backwash of the culture war that we're dealing with on so many different fronts in society. I don't know. It's just a weird, you got to take this side, got to take that side kind of thing. But yeah, he was suspended for those 2 games, came back, and seems like he's been, he was certainly red hot against the Orioles, multiple big hits. And then I was really more impressed with the play in center field. He was just, dipping and dodging and dashing around and just, kind of really like stifling the Orioles' ability to manufacture offense a little bit too. So I was impressed with him. And then Yoshida kind of as their designated hitter there.
He's been guy out of here.
He has not lived up to his contract. I think defensively, he's kind of a nothing, but like, dude, that guy's got a powerful bat and he sees the ball super well.
Yeah. I had him in fantasy earlier this year and then he messed up his thumb. I think he tore ligaments and he was out for a while. He had, I think surgery on the ligaments and I had to get rid of him just for roster purposes. And now I'm like, man, that guy, he just hits. He's Ichiro. You know, he and again, very similar swing to Stephen Kwan. Like they're just really, really good hitters. And yeah, there were a couple tweets last night being like, I will not miss seeing Yoshida when the Red Sox leave town. He is that's going to be a guy who just hits for years and years and years. Like you said, he's a nothing on defense. You don't have to worry about him. But man, I mean, he lit up Burnes. I think he hit a home run while I was sitting up top Steven Glansberging by myself on the center field bar, waiting for Spenny to answer a text.
Yeah, can we get a little recap on that?
Well, you know, I'm like, hey, you know, I'm at the game with my daughter, and my cousin was in town, so I brought her and my brother, and like, hey, you guys stay down here. I'm gonna go up and see my buddy Spenny at the bar, and he's like, oh yeah, we're up here, and sends the picture. Crickets. I do multiple laps. I'm looking at tables. I'm looking all around. I see nothing. I see the guy who's sleeping on Spenny's couch. He's like, yeah, I'm here with Spencer. And he was like, I don't know where he is. And I was like, yeah, me neither. Then I get that back.
There's nothing worse than like being in a public setting. And obviously Orioles games, this happens a lot where you're like supposed to meet up with somebody and you're kind of just walking around. And it's like, nobody's looking at you. Nobody really cares, but you just feel like all the eyes are like, what are you doing by yourself? Like, why are you? I don't know. Listen, I like to do stuff by myself sometimes. Steven Glansberg got done dirty by Superbad. I would eat by myself in college a lot. Not in high school, but I just go to the dining room. You know, I'd go to the cafeteria in Salisbury there. They had a little TV room. I just sit there, watch Sports Center, and just eat my lunch it was peaceful. You're around people a lot, especially at that age. So I don't know. Steven Glansberg, done dirty by Superbad.
I agree. But Eric Arditi, done dirty by Spenny. We'll say that.
Yeah, Spenny is kind of like, he's either like all the way in on like the group chats and like being, you know, in dialed in with you communication wise, but when he is not, that boy is incommunicado, like he's doing his own thing. So
what did he tweet at 3 a.m.?
It was about the new NFL kickoff.
That's what it was. Yeah,
he tweeted something like the new NFL. It was so funny. Like I think I like woke up in the middle of the night or something for some reason. I might have had to like pee or something, and I just, you know, bleary-eyed, I just checked Twitter real quick and I just see Spenny like the new NFL kickoff is giving me like, you know, timestamp 3:28 a.m. or something. I was like, yep, that's my guy right there. And obviously that's been kind of a running bit with you for years at this point. So I think you get a kick out of that. Yeah,
before I even knew Spenny, all I knew him from was like, that's the guy who posts Ravens clips of like breaking down a 3-4 defense and a nickel blitz at 4:45 a.m. Like that's all
it's draft season too. It's true. Well, he is in some ways, and it's draft season, like in particular when he's like gets to break down like, you know, the fourth wide receiver from like North Dakota State. He's like, dude, this guy's like hips are so fluid. Watch him get in and out of this break, and you check the timestamp, and it's like, man, that guy. I hope to at some point get to a place in my life where I love something as much as that man loves the sport of football.
Yeah, he loves like a BYU center at 4:46 in the morning. And he's talking about his footwork and his arm length and everything like that. So, yeah.
I saw the franchise actually shared something on Instagram about like the couple, like, you know, she goes to sleep at 9 p.m. He goes to sleep at 8 a.m. And there's like a heart emoji. That was very heartwarming to see. I got a kick out of that. Shout out to the franchise.
Fran gets it. But no, yeah, back to, I don't know. I mean, Boston, you know, they hit the hell out of the ball, and the Orioles pitched really well. Again, the bullpens were kind of iffy.
So we got Mike Franz in here saying, I know Hyde gets a lot of grief in bullpen management, which I think, like you said, kind of deserved throughout the series a little bit. But he said, as far as today's game, what were your thoughts on putting Perez back out there in the 8th after a little shaky 7th? I really liked it, and it obviously worked out fairly well, I think. He's just kind of the bulldog. So, you know, Perez is one of those vibes guys. And then the bullpen kind of starting to take shape a little bit here. It seems like we do kind of have confirmation now. Jacob Calvin-Meyer tweeting a quote from Hyde saying that Seranthony Dominguez is effectively going to be the Orioles closer going forward. And I think he's given up, you know, 2 home runs, but those are the only 2 RBIs that he's given up in that spot? So
let me see. So I'll say I wasn't a fan of Perez coming in that 8th. I remember thinking like, I wouldn't have put him out there. And I know that's how they got the run. Cano gave up the hit, I believe.
It's Cano. Yeah, like Cano with inherited runners is kind of becoming a little bit of an issue. Like it seems like he just needs a blank slate when he's going to go out there. And you've made the point that he's played well. I totally agree. But there have certainly been spots where he enters into a jam and he's not going to be the guy that's going to diffuse the bomb, right? Like he's not going to be the hurt locker, you know, Jeremy Renner type, you know, cowboy. But he's certainly he's held his own. But you can get back into the Perez point you were making there.
Well, yeah, I wasn't a fan of it. And then, I kind of saw they got some hits and I think he walked a guy and it was like, okay, well, this is probably why I wouldn't have gone with him. I don't know who I would have gone to. I don't remember who had pitched or not or whatever. But again, you're without Coulomb, you're without Brian Baker now, who Brian Baker pitched well the other night. You're without Jacob Webb and those guys. So again, this bullpen is not, it's not at full strength. But so here, this is our buddy Dylan Atkinson. He tweeted out Seranthony Dominguez since being traded to the Orioles. 10 games, 10 and a third innings pitched, 2 runs, 5 hits, 3 walks, 13 strikeouts, and he's 3 for 3 in save opportunities. So he's been, for as bad as Soto, and Soto hasn't given up a run, I don't think, in his last 4 or 5 appearances now. But for as bad as, Rogers has been, I think you got to tip your cap and say, Eflin's been better than advertised. Seranthony's been better than advertised. And I even said Austin Slater. I think, or is that his name? Yeah. Austin Slater, right? I thought Slater, when he comes in, he started that game on Thursday night with the bunt, and then Gunnar hits the home run. And it's like, that's,
that was one of the better. That was probably maybe the best executed bunt I've ever seen. Was that the first pitch, like the first at bat of the game too?
Yeah, because he was leading off, and again, everyone's like, "What are we doing leading off? What are we doing, Hyde?" And that's what he does. But 3 of the 5 guys they've traded for have been,
and that was the Gunnar homer drives him in right after that, if I'm remembering correctly. And I think that wound up being the one of the bigger differences in the game there. What did we wind up 5-1?
5-1, yeah.
Yeah, so starting it off with 2 runs there, that was pretty critical. And I think it was 2-1. I think maybe late into that one, if I remember right here. Feels like it was, 4 weeks ago as opposed to 4 days at this point. That's just kind of the nature of where we're at with this season. But that's another massive story. We talked about it on the last time we recorded. And I tweeted about it, actually, that Gunnar finding that home run swing is going to be massive for the Orioles. And speaking of Spenny, having a little fun with me, talking about, oh, yeah, no shit, hitting home runs is good. And I think he's out, I get what he's saying intellectually, but I think you understand in the context the point that I was making. He had 1 home run since the All-Star break before he hit that one to kind of break through and sort of break the duck in the log jam there the other night. And what did he have? 3 since then overall?
4 and 5 games, yeah.
4 and 5 games. So yeah, exactly. Like when he starts playing like that, and it doesn't even have to be that good. Let's call it 2 in every 5. That would be ideal for a team that is struggling to manufacture runs when he is not doing that. Also good to see Adley hit a homer today too. So it's just like, if those 2 guys, like, that is just the point that I'm going to continue to hammer home. We can talk about pitching. We can talk about this, that, and the other. It's all very valid points with the struggles that we've seen this team go through and the unevenness, which continues here with a 2-2 split in a series. Getting those 2 guys, one of whom is, kind of the face of your franchise at this point, and another one who's kind of the heart and soul of it, after being the 1-1 pick in the face of the rebuild. I mean, they need those guys to be playing like they were in this series if they want to have a chance to win the AL East and, make some noise in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Again, Gunnar is really, and it's funny. I think Jacob Calvin Meyer tweeted it too, and he was like, there was kind of the notion that, like, oh, Gunnar's in a slump, and I think he tweeted and was like, if you look at his numbers since the All-Star break, I think he was batting 297.
He was getting on base every game. He was getting hits. He was getting on. I mean, he was still, obviously a very effective player. But it's just
defense is ironed out now too. His defense, he had that little 2 or 3 week yips kind of thing. And now it's back to every play is, he's backhanding it, going to his right, and he's making a good throw right across the diamond. So that, he's, and this is, I don't know if anybody really they should follow him at Orioles Review, Dan Sanchez. This guy's great on Twitter. He tweeted after the home run to say MVP Gunnar is back. And then his follow-up tweet was, hard to fully appreciate that we have a 40 home run shortstop, the thing every team dreams of, and he just turned 23. Again, that's the perfect, kind of thing. And somebody said, who also plays one of the best defensive positions, at his position. So Gunnar is the guy who goes, the team goes as Gunnar goes. And again, we've seen that the last month. If Gunnar's not hitting home runs, it kind of seems like the energy level is down. You saw it today.
Defensively, I mean, like you've got to be able to chalk up some of that to the turmoil that's been going on around him, right? Holiday is much more settled in now there at second base. I think he's starting to look pretty good defensively. But there were some times where it's like maybe you can't trust him one way, and certainly he had some grounders go directly to him, obviously, that he sort of whiffed on a little bit. But overall, it's just you got Holiday one way, then you've got Westberg out of the lineup, and you're dealing with Arias, who's had some struggles out there too, and then Kobe Mayo, who just looked, adrift at sea out there at third base a lot of the time. So it just defensively, I'm not going to give him too much shit because it has been a tough stretch as far as figuring out who's going to be kind of his, right side and his left side there in the infield.
Mm-hmm. And I remember, I think Adam used to talk about that being like, somebody asked him, what made you so good, in center field? And he said, because I knew who was to my left. I knew Nick Markakis was right there, and I know his range, and I know what balls he can get to, and I know which ones he can't get to. And he just said that mentally is so soothing and calming, where, again, you don't have to worry about, again, Gunner's like, Kobe can't make that play that Jordan can. And same thing, Jackson may not be able to get to the ball that Jorge can. And again, you saw the issues there, but those have been ironed out. So again, he's back to hitting home runs 4 and 5 games since the Jimmy's event. So I don't want to take full credit for that. And then, it was awesome to see Adley hit the home run today. I think two, maybe an at bat before Adley hit the home run. I told my dad, his power is just like gone. He just, I think I was trying to think, what was the last home run he hit? And I said, was it the game after the All-Star break? And then later on, Kevin Brown says, the first home run since Texas and, after the All-Star break. So nice to see him get his. I think they said it's his first home run at home in almost 2 months, like June 10th or something. It was something like that. So, again, if he can kind of get going and he did some good stuff this weekend, but despite the bad back, his hurt little back on Friday, but Jackson on Friday was awesome. That was cool to see the 4 for 5, the triple, making what's his name look like an idiot after running into the fence. He fell like a I don't know, a guy carrying groceries, like in that GIF where he was just like falling over and like tossing everything. I didn't think that ball had a chance to even hit the wall, and it just kept going. So he's hitting the ball. He's hitting the ball hard. I don't think he had a hit today, but again,
he had a fielder's choice today, I think, reached on that, but I don't know if he had an actual hit.
Yeah, it's good to see him kind of coming into form and playing well and hitting the ball hard, because good things happen when you hit the ball hard.
Yeah, speaking of Gunnar and hitting the ball hard, I think he was the one who sent it up into the flag court, correct? And a little bit of a story to track there. A certain Zack Hample was in attendance, and I think he was rearing and raring to get his hands on that one. It sounds like there was maybe a little bit of a potential melee, a little bit of a scuffle for that one. And I think it was our Orioles gatekeeper and our guy, Uncle Andy Billy. We're just talking about throwing an elbow into Zack Hample, just sending him sprawling to the ground. It sounded like it was like kind of an actual incident out there.
Is that real? Did that because I wasn't on Twitter for much after like the 8th inning or whatever.
I think so. Let me see if I can find the tweet here, because I think Orioles gatekeeper was doing a little bit of a victory lap. I
got sent a tweet from Dan Clark, and he was like, "Oh, sources tell me this happened." I was like, "Shut up! I'm not listening to Dan Clark." But I didn't know if it was like a real thing that had happened and like documented, or was it like?
So there's like a Zapruder film. There's this Zapruder film. Yeah, there is a video, but it's a little bit of a JFK assassination type thing where it's like, can you really make out what's going on here? I'm trying to analyze it as we're watching this. I'm not going to throw it up because of the Masson rights, but yeah, no, it seems like somebody
DM it to me. Tim, send me a DM or tag me in the video, because I haven't seen this, so I'll look for it.
Orioles gatekeeper 5 hours ago, elbowing Zack Hample into a flagpole and watching him tumble to the ground is a top 2 baseball moment for me, and it ain't too. He is absolutely just moonwalking all over Zack Hample right now. I think he might have premeditated this. He's got one from 5 hours ago as well. The target is scoped and locked for destruction, and I think we've got Hample in here. I think he was planning this, and then he executed it to perfection, it sounds like. And I think Hample might have been belly aching about it a little bit on X as well.
I just saw Jimmy's tweet. Your next meal's on us, hero. Wait, where? Oh, all right. I see it now. All right, I'll have to break this down. This is pretty funny. Yeah, boxing him out. I'm trying. Oh yeah. Okay. And then it cuts off kind of between. I'll see if we can get security footage.
Yeah, it's tough to tell, but yeah, not to advocate for violence or anything. But that is like the video of Zack Hample a couple of years ago, just absolutely posterizing that young kid to grab a home run. I forget whose it was. This might have been a little bit of a me reaping, me sowing situation. Haha, this is great, and then this fucking sucks. What the fuck?
He does. He literally just goes and boxes him out, and he like shoves him into the flagpole a little bit. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
that's incredible.
That's very, very funny.
Damn, Zack Hample, man,
Too
that's
good.
wild.
Too good. Oh my gosh, that's great. Love that. Okay, well, yeah, that's a good. Oh yeah, 8.8 thousand. Yeah, 8.8 thousand likes on that tweet. Damn.
Yeah, and it sounds like he was really relishing in the victory there. So shout out to you, Orioles gatekeeper. Sounds like he had a day out there.
Attaboy.
Yeah. Shifting gears a little bit, we were talking bullpen. Mike Franz, if Kimbrel isn't the closer and you don't trust him with pitching unless it's a 4 to 5 run lead, do you think the bullpen is playing a man down with him? Can you see a reality where he isn't on the playoff roster? I can see that reality. I don't know what his role is on this team right now. I just don't get it.
I don't know. I mean, I was walking my daughter around when he came in and he gave up the 2 home runs, and I had literally sent a text after he gave up those home runs. I was like, let's get out of here. Like, it's the 8th inning and Kimbrel's openly pissing down his leg. I don't know. Again, I mean, I said it on Twitter. I was like, this guy's going to pitch for the Orioles in October. Like, he has to find his role. I don't know what that role is going to be, because I tweeted it too. And I said this to Brent Harris on the radio yesterday. I said, I've seen a lot of bad Orioles teams and a lot of bad Orioles players, and I cannot remember one that absolutely sucks the air out of Camden Yards when they come in like Craig Kimbrel does. And again, like, people are like, oh, Baldo was bad and Davis. And it's like, yeah, but those guys.
It almost reminds me of when Jim Johnson was going through his struggles, because like he's a guy who like had a narrative around him. He had a narrative around him as a strong closer and a guy who was going to come in and, get things done for you. And I think this is a much more extreme case, obviously. But Kimbrel had a couple different narratives following him into the season where he is a Hall of Famer. He's an all-time great closer. You bring him into that role. You've got the added pressure of replacing Bautista, who was the best closer in baseball. It's just one of those things where he's got all this stuff working both for him, but also against him. You've got the Philly experience where all the Philly fans were, crowding, the mentions on Twitter telling you this guy stinks. Like it's going to happen to you. And I think, he certainly outlived that for much of the season, but I don't know, when you get to his age and start to go through some struggles, and then you're already playing arguably the most mental position in sports that can just psychologically wear you down. And then that, starts to have its physical effects on you. It's just one of those things where like it can be tough to really outrun that for the entirety of the season. And we've seen him have ups and downs, but right now he is probably as low as I think we've seen him. And I think you're right. It just kind of sucks the momentum in the air out of a crowd in a way that I can't remember much either. Ubaldo obviously had his struggles, but it's just such a unique case where this guy was so good for so long. Then he had his very high profile struggles in Philly with giving up leads in playoff games and things like that. It was just a perfect storm of whenever the struggle started, people were automatically going to jump down his throat. And I think at this point, it's hard not to feel like they were justified. Like it feels like maybe we were always building to this. And I know we've eulogized Kimbrel probably more than once this season on these very shows, and he's come back and, at least carved out a little bit of a role for himself. But at this point, it's just as we're getting closer and closer to, nut cutting time with having to build a playoff roster and entering the playoffs, it's just really hard to predict what the future for this guy is going to be.
Yeah, I really don't know. Because again, you hope is by the playoffs. I'm trying to look. Jacob Calvin Meyer again had tweeted his like Kimbrel's his last 10 games or something like that, or like this is the worst stretch that he's had. Here you go. Brendan Hyde was asked about Craig Campbell's struggles and what can be done. I'm going to try, but ultimately it's up to him. That's him saying, like, listen, we've given him the chances, and when we give him the chances, he doesn't do it.
And Hyde is a vociferous, like, I'm going to have my players back guy. And he's done that, I think, with Kimbrel one too many times at this point in the season. I think he's just kind of putting it in God's hands here and saying, like, this is either going to happen or it's not, but I'm washing my hands of this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, here's what he said after Friday. Well, a couple homers, but the walk, that's kind of getting him in trouble there. The walk, the stolen base, they just got on his fastball. And again, we've seen that a lot. The walks, here it is. Yeah. Craig Kimbrel's last save was July 7th. He had a 2.10 ERA. And here's what he's done in his last 10 appearances since. 9 2/3 inning, 11 hits, 13 runs, 11 earned, 12 walks, 11 strikeouts, 4 home runs. That's a 10.24 ERA, 2.38 whip. That's that's not, you cannot put a guy with those numbers on the playoff roster because again, you just know what's going to happen. You know exactly what's going to happen. He's going to get rattled. And again, it's weird to say that about a guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame for a closing and he's going to end up top 3 in saves or something like that. But you can't put him out there right now. It's Seranthony's job right now. I mean, he's been absolutely awesome. And again, RIP to your pictures. You know, I know it was a good run. We had fun with it. But it has to be Seranthony. And again, Kimbrel, here's the thing too. Kimbrel, the Orioles don't owe him, like, hey, we got to put this guy on the roster. They don't have to. He is a veteran in every sense of the word. He seems like a great guy, but this is a guy who and it's gonna be a tough conversation. But this is where it's like, hey, we have to do what's best for the team and, take the best 26 guys. And right now, you're not one of those 26. That's just,
and I think, you made the point that he's probably a good dude. Like he's had a long career. He's made so much money. He made $13 million this year to do this, which, you probably wouldn't have paid $13 million for what ultimately wound up happening here. And I think he gets that, like, right. Like he's been there through those big moments. I think he's a pro's pro. And if they do try to carve out a role for him, he's not going to bellyache about it. He's not one of these like psycho, like, back into the, rotation, closer type guys that it's like, no, it's not like a Chris Sale, cutting up the jerseys type thing because he's pissed off or whatever it might be. I feel like if they do want to give him a role as sort of a, relief man at a certain point, at kind of a low leverage, come in there, eat some innings, hopefully get us out of there without giving up too much damage, I'm sure he'll relish that. Like it's just like when you get to a certain point in your career, I feel like you're happy to just kind of be out there in whatever capacity it is. So,
and again, especially with his struggles, like we know, I mean, it's open, his struggles, like, and somebody said it there, like the fastball placement is not there. And Spenny kind of harped on it early on and was like, when Craig's fastball is firing at the top of the zone, that's how you know he's on.
Yeah, it was the high heat versus the just kind of leaking it out low into the left or wherever, the placement might have been.
Yep.
It feels like batters would know it was coming when you're going to get that low and away, like nobody was chasing it. And yeah, if the high heat isn't working, he's not working for you.
Nope. And it hasn't been working again since July 7th. That's a month and a half. So again, like you said, nut cutting time. Playoffs, you mentioned the low leverage situation. Playoffs, they don't have low leverage situations. They're like that does not exist in the playoffs. That's perfectly fine for the regular season, but it's not going to cut it in the playoffs. And I don't know. I mean, they've made tough decisions before leaving guys off playoff rosters. It's going to have to happen, and they got to figure something out. But again, hopefully they get healthy with Coulomb and Webb and Grayson coming back. Again, Grayson coming back will force somebody else back into the bullpen, and it's kind of a butterfly effect from there. But right now, I don't know if the salary will work against them, and it's like we're paying this guy $13 million, we have to have him on there. I don't know, but like you said, right, everyone's saying it in the comments right now. It's Seranthony's time, and Cano has been pretty lights out except for a couple inherited runners, but those are the guys that you're going to go with, and Burnes.
Yeah, and the $13 million thing, like Rubenstein and Arrighetti, like they didn't even really officially own the team when the signing happened. And I $13 million to them is like a grain of sand at the beach, right? Like they're not going to and they've been, Mike talked about it at the trade deadline. He was like, look, they've been great. They've told me if I want to do something, I have carte blanche to go out and do it. And I think we want to see that reflected more in the re-signing of some of these guys that we want to see stick around here a long time. Haven't seen that happen quite yet, but it sounds like vocally that everyone's on the same page. And if it comes down to, Craig or somebody else, and Mike wants to go with somebody else, I don't think he's going to feel pressure from the ownership group. When I think if I had to guess, if we're having that conversation in a room with John Angelos, I think John Angelos might put his thumb on the scale a little bit and say, look, we're paying this guy this amount of money. We have to send him out there.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. And again, it just all comes down to performance. I mean, if he keeps this up for another 2 weeks, obviously it's like, nope, no chance. But again, I think if he shows like 2 or 3 outings in a row where, again, he's doesn't walk anyone, he gives up a hit, but he strikes out 2 and he, holds a run. I don't know. Something like that. If he just shows, I think, a couple ounces of progress, I could see them kind of justifying that. Being like, okay, well, we can use him in the 6th inning role or 7th inning role or something like that. But I don't know. That's the kind of the dark cloud around the Orioles right now is what do you do with Kimbrel, and how do you throw him in there? And, the rest, you got to get him in there because he can't, when he sits 3 days or more, his ERA is this, but when he pitches every third day or second day or whatever, it's not that bad. But, it's a tough situation, but they got to make the best decision for the team. And right now it's not with him on the playoff roster. But again, we still have a month and a half to figure that out. So.
Yeah, you got it going on in the starting rotation too with Trevor Rogers. It hasn't looked good. I think he's had a little bit of bad luck as well, but certainly not really. It's not looking like a good acquisition thus far. And we've got the Back It Up Binge podcast saying we need Rogers to step up now. I have no patience left, having waited since Reagan was Prez for a ring. Glad Kimbrel has been moved out of the closer role. But yeah, Trevor Rogers versus Bert Suarez at this point. I mean, that's kind of another one where I'm way more comfortable with Uncle Bert, with Big Al out there on the mound than I am with Rogers right now. And we'll see how the calculus of that is played out over the course of the next couple of weeks as well. But I know Suarez has had his ups and downs, and he's a guy with not a ton of pedigree. But, man, it just feels like he's way more dialed in right now. So I'm excited to see, obviously with the absence of Grayson going to be continuing here for another couple of weeks, how they manage that. Because, like I said, they already sent Povich back down. It seems like they want to try and keep Rogers in the plans here right now. But I don't know. It just feels like Bert, I'm much more confident in him and what he can do. And even Kramer, who's been a little inconsistent as well. But I think what you're getting with Dean a lot more than you do with Rogers right now, who really, people make the argument that he was kind of more of a long-term acquisition where you can get him into the pitching lab this offseason and start to do some work. And then you got 2 years of control. That all sounds fine. But as far as the 2024 Orioles are concerned, that's another guy that I'm kind of keeping an eye on.
100%. 100%. That's an ode to Spenny. But yeah, Rogers has to kind of shit or get off the pot. This is a team trying to win a World Series. This is a team that can win the World Series, despite what people are saying. Like we've talked about over and over for 2 months, no one is separating themselves. Even if the Yankees win tonight, the Orioles are a game back, and the Yankees and Guardians play a series this week. So that's go Cleveland, put on all your Indian stuff, Guardians, whoever you want to root for. But yeah, and I saw someone asking about Norby in the comments. Connor Norby is hitting okay, now he's up to 263. He was batting like 220 like last week. So
yeah, he got off to a rough start.
Yeah, he has not done anything, and Stowers has not been performing well either. So again, it's not like and again, Connor Norby is hitting that 260 in AAA. So
yeah, I mean,
he should be up. Blah, blah, blah. He's not performing well at all on a team that is very bad. They don't even have him up there. So that kind of tells you what they think about him.
Even with all that knowledge in mind, if I could, hop into the DeLorean and go back to the trade deadline, I am not making that move for Trevor Rogers.
I would be fine. I would be fine with that. But again, I have faith in the Orioles pitching lab. Being able to tinker with Eflin or not Eflin, being able to tinker with Rogers because of what we've seen them do with Felix Bautista and Austin Voth and Cionel Perez and Albert Suarez, who hadn't thrown a pitch in the major leagues in 7 years. So, it sucks that he is pissing down his leg right now. But if and this is crazy to say, if there's one organization that can hopefully fix him, I think it's the Orioles right now. So, again, he's been here for 3 weeks. It's tough to watch him pitch, but hopefully they can start to get him, ironed out and looking like when he was an all-star and like he did when he was younger. So
absolutely. Tim Malarkey, side note, meeting Eflin today, had some player meetings going on. He's a superstar. Dude shook everyone's hand and introduced himself while asking your name. Yeah, I am enamored with Zack Eflin right now. I don't know. I just think that what an acquisition that was going back to the trade deadline. I know we've already talked about it a little bit, but I can't stress it enough that I love that move when it was made. It felt like they gave up comparably like nothing, especially compared to the Rogers trade. Like, it's so funny how the compensation works out on that. Like, if you had sent Norby and Stowers for Eflin, and then the package that you sent for Eflin for Rogers, nobody would be, saying anything, I don't think, at this point. So it's just interesting how that kind of stuff works out. And I mean, that's obviously huge for you because you've got the Mark Davis, John Gruden situation going on with you and Zach. So I know you love to see your twin out there just absolutely shoving.
Yeah, it's and Friday, what is it? Thursday night, he's wearing the girl dad Barstool hat. So that was pretty funny. Yeah, again, somebody else had made that point earlier, like, if you switch the prospects that were traded for them, I think you would be okay with any of them. Like, that's again, I would love if they should go out. I mean, I would love an extension for Eflin,
Yeah.
get that.
I mean,
before
honestly, like if
free agency
we've
next
talked ad nauseum about Burnes and him potentially leaving, if that does happen, like I'd feel relatively comfortable if they could just lock up Eflin and then have Grayson, locked up for as long as he is, and then kind of do some wheeling and dealing with the rest of that rotation. I feel like you'd be in a pretty good spot. Obviously, my contention is still to re-sign Burnes, but Eflin is like the perfect, consolation prize if that doesn't happen, if they're able to lock him up. I know they've got another year of control, I think just the 1 year, but man, that would be some great peace of mind.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree.
All righty. Anything on this upcoming series here for this week?
I don't know, man. The Mets. I obviously I follow a lot of Mets fans through the Barstool universe, Clem and KFC and Meek Phil and Frank the Tank, obviously. And Meek Phil was just tweeting today about, he was like, this bullpen is just the worst. So I was like, this is going to be a fun series. There's going to be a lot of Twitter banter. I'm excited to see what Frank usually like on the opposing team and yeah, I don't know who he's really going to go after.
I'm trying to think of nicknames that he could come up with right now. Nothing's really coming to mind off the top of my head, but that's why he's the artist. He's Mozart with the brush, and I'm just a schlub watching the artist at work. I'm excited to see what Frank the Tank. I don't know if we're going to be getting a ton of objective analysis like we saw from Meek Phil talking about the bullpen there, and I'm sure KFC is going to have a lot to say. I don't know if we can really count on that with Frank the Tank, but it will be pure entertainment at least.
Yeah, it will be good. I have no clue what to think about this Mets series. Again, Mets are one of the best teams ball 1 week, and then they're one of the worst the next. So it kind of sounds like the Orioles. But there's some shortstop star power here. Lindor, like sneaky may win the NL MVP. Obviously, like Marte's having a great year. Ohtani, obviously, but Lindor is awesome. So he's going to be a guy, obviously, to keep your eye on. We saw him in Cleveland years, hitting the hell of a ball. It should be a good series, and it's been a while since the Orioles obviously were up in New York, but I know there's a Jimmy's bus going up there. So if you're going on that, have fun. I heard it's an awesome stadium, and yeah, again they don't have this isn't the DeGrom, Harvey, Syndergaard. You're not facing these guys. I know they're facing Quintana tomorrow. I forget the other two pitchers going.
Is it
but again,
Hawk 2?
I don't think so.
Hawk 2 is getting the ball.
Let me see. Oh, and it's a day game on Wednesday, which I did not know. Oh no, Quintana on, I guess Quintana Wednesday or Tuesday. David Peterson 7-1 with the 3.04 ERA, a lefty, and then Wednesday the day game, Eflin versus Manaea. So okay, these are winnable games, winnable series. It's a weird schedule. They had what? Was that 6 at home, 2 against Washington, 4 against the Red Sox. Then you go up to New York for 3, and then you come back for 4 against Houston, and then they go on the West Coast. So strange series. We're running out of games. There's like 40 games left. They are running out of games. So again, this is if you're watching baseball right now, you got to watch. You're rooting for the Tigers in the Little League Classic to get the Yankees a loss, and but they got to start putting these wins together. They haven't won 3 in a row since the Verdugo game and then the first 2 Texas games after the All-Star break.
On their current pace, I think, since the All-Star break, I think they're on pace for like 91 wins. Like you're probably going to have to do better than that. You've got to, like you said, you've got to at least start in winning series. The 3 in a row thing, we've talked about that. You got to win 3 games. Like you've just got to start stacking these wins here and not taking games for granted, and getting the body language a little better, and like starting to realize the fact that like you're playing playoff baseball essentially right now. Like you've got to start approaching it that way, and that goes for Hyde too with some of the decision making. That goes for the roster moves that Mike is making. Like they really have to start realizing the fact that like if they don't start to get a little bit proactive here, from the players on the diamond to everything in between, like it could get out of there. It could slip away from them a little bit. So like you said, they've got to start pouring it on.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's again, this is, like you said, this is basically 2 months of playoffs, like a month and a half of playoff baseball. Just kind of like Taylor's boy Booney said, like it's right there in front of you. You
gotta go get it.
Got to know what you got to do. You know what you got to do. Go out and grab it. Go get it. So start winning some games. Start winning some series.
That would be nice. That would be. I think I was workshopping doing a Grandma Go in the Cage tweet about the 3 games thing, but it was a little late because they had already won the 2, and I was like, I don't want to do this now, because if they win tomorrow, then she'll only have had one night in the cage. And that's like, what
Mhm.
kind of, that's not really any kind of real punishment. Like I wanted to do it after a loss. So maybe after the next loss, I'll say, grandma's not coming out of the cage until the Orioles win 3 in a row. So.
Well, hopefully it's not for a couple more games,
Yeah, no, in fact, maybe grandma never has to go in the cage. How about we just do that? How about we just win every game from here on out? It's not that hard to win, guys. It's baseball. Like, come on.
It's not hard at all to win games. So,
okay. Anything else for tonight?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it.
All right. Well, we appreciate everyone hanging in here with us on this Sunday night. Got the thunderstorms rolling through. We got all sorts of stuff going on here in the Baltimore area. We've got the Orioles playing some continued uneven baseball, but they're actually showing some signs of life here with Gunnar Henderson, with Adley Rutschman, with some of these unconventional starting pitching options that they've been rolling out there. There's some things to like here. So, looking forward to the next couple weeks, the next 40 games or so, but it'll start with the series against the Mets. So, in the meantime, if you guys liked what you heard here, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page here. Leave us a comment, like all our videos, do all of that stuff. Spread us by word of mouth. Do what you got to do to get the word out there about the Exit 52 podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Exit 52 Podcast. Instagram, same handle. I am at Jake Luke on Twitter. That's LOUQUE. Eric is at EDITTI22, Brian at Barstool Banks, Taylor at Taylor Smythe 10, and Spenny at Ravens 4 Dummies. That is the number 4 in the middle there. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you very, very soon.